I want to draft. Dun, 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 dun. I want to draft. Dun, 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 dun. All right, well, the draft's a few days away. We can still talk about the draft. My guy, Mike Luchene, NFL Rough Draft, one of the most accurate in the big board competition each and every year, three-time champion. Already talked about O-linemen and wide receivers. Go check that video out. Running backs, tight ends, and Mike sleepers. It's coming your way right now. If you missed the other discussion with my guy here, Mike Luchene from NFL Rough Draft, one of the most accurate draft prognosticators around, three-time big board champion with his teammate Ray at NFL Rough Draft. I mean, if you missed that other discussion about offensive linemen, wide receivers, go check it out. What are you waiting for? We got more running backs, tight ends, and then an annual list that you just got to keep in the back of your mind. Who's Mike higher on than everybody else? Who's Mike lower on than everybody else? We'll get to it as well. Let's start with those running backs, Mike. 25, probably not going to be somebody there available at 25. I got to imagine that Genty's going very, very high. Amarion Hampton's probably going higher than most people believe. And then it's sort of that next group. Let's start with the Ohio State duo. Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. Which one of those two do you like more? And we'll start with a conversation about whoever you like more out of that duo.
Yeah, so I think Travion Henderson is his own sort of miniature group after Hampton. So you're right. Genty's not getting to 25. There's no way. Hampton, it's very unlikely he gets to 25. Although, strange things happen on draft night. So, I suppose anything's possible. Travion Henderson, I would expect to come off the board right around that range, though. So it wouldn't shock me to see him in the first round. And the reason for that is simple. When you look for running backs going, high, you're looking for their ability to impact the passing game. Now, he's not just a good receiver in the passing game. He is the most ready of any of these backs when it comes to pass protection. Now, the Texans are okay right now with Joe Mixon, so I don't know if he makes the most sense for them at 25. But Travion Henderson could certainly go, in that range. And I think probably his floor would be about 40.
Right. So it feels like he'd be perfect in a little trade back scenario. Somebody jumps up to 25 for, say, I don't know, QB3, and you're sitting there at 33 or 34 to start day two. Snatch him up. You got a dynamic little duo with Joe Mixon and Travion Henderson. And then when Joe moves on, you still got Henderson. Like, it kind of feels like he'd fit in a move, but he's not getting to 58, and 25 is kind of too early for him. So he's kind of in that no man's land.
Yep.
Where are you on Judkins? Because he's a fascinating prospect because people look at him as a part-time back because that's what he did for Ohio State this year. He was the dude for Ole Miss for 2 years, and he walked on campus and was immediately the dude for Ole Miss. So where are you on Judkins and kind of what he brings to the table at the NFL level?
Yeah, I love Judkins, and I don't think he needs to be a part-time back at the NFL. You look at Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders both played for Oklahoma State at the same time, and you saw Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown were like the second and third picks or something, and their draft was a different time. But still, even though he sort of split the load with Travion Henderson, I think Judkins is more than capable of being the lead back. He's more of a hammer, obviously, than Henderson. He's got a little bit more development in pass protection than Henderson, or than some of these other guys as well, though, before he's ready to sort of take on that role. But I think if you sort of throw a third down back in there with him, and I don't mean somebody to split carries with him. I just mean some sort of complementary type. I guess if you want to look at this rookie class, if you're looking at like a day 3 Brashad Smith or someone like that, I think Judkins can handle most of the load with just having someone come in for like the 2-minute drill and that's like obvious passing situations.
That's what I kind of love about his fit with the Texans. Is like if he got there and they wanted to make that pick and take that swing, he shares with Mixon, which kind of takes some of the load off of him on the front end of the career. Whenever Mixon moves on, he's the new lead back, and then you go find complement backs around him because you could trust him with that. Like, I think Joe Mixon's a great example of he came in, he got trusted with a heavy workload right away. I think 3 of the first 5 seasons, he's in the top 5 in touches for running backs, and he's still getting it done. Like he's a durable guy. Like Henderson doesn't have quite that durability. He had some injury stuff pop up. Judkins feels like he's like a tank that just keeps rolling on. It's like you're right. You hit him, he gets up, he just keeps rolling. So him and Mixon would be fun, and then certainly the succession plan behind Mixon would sort of be taken care of if you had Judkins on the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
This video, my visit with Mike, brought to you by The Perfect Gene. The Perfect Gene is the motto. It's the truth as well. They really are. The perfect jeans are the best jeans I've ever worn. They are so comfortable. They're breathable. They're lightweight. I got a blue pair. I got a black pair as well. You see here on the screen me styling on TV in my black pair of jeans from The Perfect Gene. They've got something for you. Tons of different colors, a bunch of different styles of fit. You wear a lot of boots, they got boot cut for you. They're incredible jeans. You have to try them out. You got free returns, free exchanges, free shipping, and 15% off when you use my link in the description down below. The Perfect Gene. I found my perfect jeans at The Perfect Gene. You can do the same. It's a name, but it's a motto. Check them out, The Perfect Gene. Okay, getting a little bit deeper into these running backs. Who are some other – okay, actually, let me go straight to Caleb Johnson in Iowa, because some people, hey, he's running back 3, no question. Others are maybe a little bit lower on a guy like him. Where are you on Johnson and kind of where he fits in the running back landscape here in this upcoming draft?
Yeah, so he's in the bucket with Judkins for me. So again, you've got Genty by himself, Hampton right after that, and then Henderson's kind of like his own mini bucket too. And then I've got Judkins and Caleb Johnson. And I think the reason why some people in the media and fans have kind of soured on him is just because look at what Judkins did at the Combine compared to what Caleb Johnson did at the Combine. And if you're breaking ties, which in this running back class, yeah, there are a lot of ties to break, that's a good way to do it. But even though Caleb Johnson ran, a little bit slower, I think he was 4.57, he's a starting running back on day one. He's a solid second round pick. And he's a guy who could be there in the second round for the Texans at 58.
Okay. All right. So you're kind of on the side that likes him a little bit. I mean, I think 58 is kind of maybe his low range. I think it'd shock me if he ended up as a third rounder. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the first few names called at the start of day 2. So he's got kind of it feels to me like a pretty clear range. Okay. This one's always fun because I feel like every draft person has a different sort of feel or vibe about this guy. Cam Skattebo from Arizona State. You watched 2024 and you're just like the moxie, the vibes, which is like that's a new thing here in the past couple of years. What are the vibes? The vibes from Cam Skattebo, high, important, very good. Feels like an energy guy. Feels like a guy who could be a maniac for you on special teams initially if you don't have him carrying the ball a lot right away. Where are you on Skattebo? What's kind of his NFL future in your eyes?
I think I'm too high on Skattebo. I would use a third round pick on him.
I'm the same way. Every time I make a list, I can't move him down where I think maybe he should be.
Yeah, well, you look at that Texas game. I mean, everybody's watching that Texas game, and he catches that big pass toward the end of regulation. I mean, he's a really easy player to like. And you see him. You have the clips of him carrying multiple defenders into the end zone. And I think that's sort of one of the reasons why the NFL is a little bit lower on him. He's such a violent runner, and yet he's not built like Derrick Henry. So, in one regard, is this going to be a guy who's able to stay healthy? But then I think the bigger thing is he's just not very fast. Right. He just doesn't have a lot of burst to his game. And I think he's going to go a lot lower than a lot of us think. I think he's day 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so but I tell you what, that's gonna be one heck of a he just like if he ends up in the day 3, that's one of those where everybody who's picking at the top of the 4th round, every fan base is like, well, we gotta get this guy. Like,
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
we gotta get Scottaboo. Like he's just hanging around there. Oh man, that's it's interesting you say that. Like right around that end of 3, start of 4, everybody's going to be wanting Scattaboo on their squad. Okay, RJ Harvey, UCF, super productive at college. Sometimes I think as I read about him and as you sort of watch him a little bit, sometimes he's just faster than the other human beings. So it's like that's a concern because you're not always going to be that at the NFL level. But what do you make of Harvey? He certainly isn't going to be, I think, anybody's lead back, but as a guy that's in a committee, a complement, a duo, it feels like he'd fit in pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about burst, my gosh, I mean, this guy, you go look at his combine numbers and his workout was completely off the charts. So this is a guy who played 6 years in college. He was a quarterback when he started his career. And, he had a really good Senior Bowl week. He's going to be, again, right in that sort of late 3rd round, late day 2, early 4th round range. And I think the only thing that kind of knocks him down a little bit is kind of like you said, not only is he not going to be the lead back, he's not a perfect fit as sort of like a 3rd down back because it's not that big. So,
right, 5'8".
Right. I don't know if he can. I don't know if he's got kind of like the sand in his pants to handle pass protection. And so, if you're kind of a smaller back and can't pass protect, that's going to knock you down a little bit. But I think when you're looking late 3rd round for him, he's sort of right on that top 100 bubble. He's a really exciting pick, and this is such an interesting class of running backs. Normally I'm sort of one of those guys who's like, yeah, some of these guys that everybody likes, they're not that good. They're all day 3 guys. This year, you're literally 15, 20 guys deep in top 100 type running backs. So you're going to have guys going in the 5th round this year who would have been 3rd round picks in many other years. So this is just a ridiculous running back class.
I love this running back class. That's part of the reason I want the Texans to go and get 2 in this class. Okay, I got a couple of, I would think probably day 3 guys for you that I want to throw at you. And we'll just kind of run through these pretty quick. Jarquez Hunter, Auburn.
Yeah, led the SEC in yards per carry, I believe. And he's kind of like a 1-speed guy, I think he's probably going to be in that 4th or 5th round range. He's again though, it's all about how these guys get stacked by the teams that are considering them. It wouldn't shock me to see him go in the 3rd round. But again, if you're looking for a quality 4th, 5th round back, he certainly fits the bill.
I liked how physical he was. I liked that he did all the other running back stuff really well at the Senior Bowl. So pass blocking, catching the ball. So it's pretty intriguing guy there. Devin Neal, Kansas, probably about in the same range as Hunter, right around there.
Yeah, Devin Neal. I mean, he's fantastic. I haven't heard any buzz about him going in the top 100 at all. He ran a 4.58 at the combine, but that's not bad. So he's kind of one of those guys that I was mentioning where I think he's going to be a 5th or 6th round pick probably. But, we could end up looking back in a couple of years and saying, wow, starting running back, he can do everything. He could literally be a 3-down starting running back in the NFL. And, he's probably going to be a 5th or 6th round pick. So someone's going to get an incredible value with him.
Any guy that basically was one of the driving forces behind turning Kansas around from a joke he moves up a little bit in my book because I'm sure he had hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table to get out of KU and go somewhere else, and he stuck around, stuck it out, and made it work with the Jayhawks, and I certainly admire that from those guys. I came here to build something. I'm going to build it, and there we go. Okay, here's one for you, and this is a guy that's near and dear to my heart, from my alma mater, one of the best universities in the entire universe. Some call it a left-out Ivy League school of the South. Texas Tech University and Taj Brooks. Man, you want production. Taj has got production. I just don't know if he's got everything that an NFL team wants, and I wonder if they're worried a little bit about the mileage on a guy like Taj.
Yeah, mileage is always a little bit of a concern, but again, when you're drafting a running back, you've only got him for 4 years. So if you could get 4 years out of a guy in the 4th or 5th round, which is where I think he'll go, I think that's pretty solid. You worry about that mileage a little bit more, when you talk about like you're taking Genty with the 6th or 7th or 8th pick in the draft. But certainly these day 3 guys, and I agree with you. I think he's underrated. I don't mind that as much there because, if you're investing a 5th round pick in Taj Brooks, you bring him in, he's there for 4 years. If he starts to break down after that, it sounds terrible, but
that's
GM,
the NFL.
Yeah, that's the kind of the way the NFL works.
Yep. Okay, I like that. Let's flop over to tight end, and then we'll get to Mike's guys that he's higher on than a lot of folks, and Mike's guys that he's lower on than a lot of folks. We'll get to that list here in just a moment. Make sure you check out NFL Rough Draft, where Mike and his teammate Ray do a fantastic job. One of the most accurate draft prognosticators around, 3-time big board champions, those guys over there at NFL Rough Draft. They got to send you guys some belts, or maybe the next, I promise you this, you win the championship again, I'll get you a belt.
Cody,
excuse me. Belts hold your pants up. I'm sorry. I'll get you a championship. There we go. You can wear it around the house.
I appreciate you. We've got to do a better job of reclaiming our title. We were up at number 1 for a while, and we got to get back there this year.
Hey, the beauty of this, unlike NFL running backs, you can just keep doing it year after year after year. There's no timeline.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about tight ends here. Tyler Warren, I love him. Fantastic. I draft him 100 times over if he was there for the Texans. He's not getting anywhere close to them. I like Colston Loveland. I also don't feel like he's probably right for the Texans in the first round as much as some of these other guys would be, nor do I think he's getting there. But then it feels like there's I call it the Baskin-Robbins theory. There's a flavor for everybody with the rest of those tight ends. You want just a pass catcher. You want a little guy that can do a little bit of both. You want just a mauler that comes in there and blocks for you. What are some of the guys you like in this tight end class after those top 2 guys that should be first rounders?
Yeah, so I agree with you. Those first 2 are going to be long gone before the Texans, are on the clock. And then I think the next 2 after that are sort of their own tier as well. And, everybody, this is not really any different than what anybody else has, but you've got Elijah Arroyo from Miami and Mason Taylor from LSU. So Arroyo is interesting because he's a good blocker and he's also really fast. He's one of these guys where it's hard to say that, we're going to look back and he could be the best tight end in the draft because of the top 2. You've got Warren and Loveland. But in a draft that doesn't have generational prospects like those 2, it wouldn't shock me to see him being, sort of like a George Kittle type, because he's a nasty blocker and he's very athletic. And this is a position where athleticism really matters. You look at Kittle was a 5th round pick, but they have those RAS scores from the combine, and I think he was close to a perfect 10. So you've got Arroyo who would be a good pick at 25.
Wow.
He could come off the board that early without question. And then the other one's Mason Taylor. Of course, this is the son of Jason Taylor. And Jason Taylor actually married Zach Thomas's sister. I think people might remember that story from back in the day.
Sure.
So he's a little bit more of kind of like the he's a solid blocker and a solid receiver, and maybe he's a little bit safer. But he didn't have the same type production. He also was playing with Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors and some other really talented receivers there at LSU. So I think those two are next up, and both of them have a chance to sneak into the first round. Maybe not with Houston, but there are a lot of rumors out there that Mark Andrews and Dallas Goedert could be on the move. So there's a couple of teams picking at the end of the first round that really value tight ends.
Interesting. Okay. Let me get you to sort of that next tier. A guy that I probably haven't talked about enough in the draft process, and I'll reveal to the audience. I had a draft guy tell me, "Well, he runs funny," and I was like, "Okay," and I just kind of kept it in the back of my mind. He's also a small school guy or smaller school guy, and the Texans haven't typically taken those players, but I'm very intrigued by Harold Fannin Jr. because he's not like a prototype size guy. He also is not the most athletic guy, but I mean, you want production. That guy was he was more productive than a lot of receivers in college from the tight end spot for Bowling Green last year.
Yeah, they funneled that whole offense through him. And so I guess kind of the way I see it is, after the two I mentioned, Arroyo and Taylor, you've got Terrence Ferguson from Oregon. And then after that, you've got a tier where for me, it's Fannin and Gunnar Helm from Texas. Again, the production is great, but it's Bowling Green, and it's an offense that was making a point in getting him the ball. Some of the best tight ends that we see in the NFL actually aren't very productive in college. They're just good athletes, and that's where Fannin falls a little bit short. That said, since there's such a drop-off after Ferguson, I think that there's a chance that Fannin and Gunnar Helm could land somewhere in the third round because you've got those top five tight ends, but then we're going to get to the third round. All five of those guys are going to be gone, and sure, I guess there's a chance we could go an entire round without having a tight end, but I think chances are Fannin and Helm, who are sort of on that third, fourth sort of borderline, one of them is going to go. And I know before we move on from that, a lot of people are kind of concerned Helm, had a terrible workout. Couple of things. First of all, with the new playoffs, you have some of these teams that are playing just deeper into
tons of football.
Yeah. So, they don't have as much time to train. But then on top of that, Gunnar Helm he injured himself running the 40-yard dash.
He had the pictures to prove it, too. He put out the pictures of the ankle there. Yeah.
And then he just finished the workout. So people look at it and they're like, wow.
Terrible idea. I mean, it's maybe a good idea for the position because you want like that gritty fight through it guy. But for like your workout numbers, bad idea, Gunnar Helm.
Yeah, but I think NFL people, they know that, right? I think like maybe media and fans are looking at those numbers and saying, oh gosh, like this isn't good. But I think the NFL people are taking that into consideration and saying, well, he got hurt and we're going to give him a pass on that.
Right. Probably I would think right after those guys, and this guy feels like he might be the king of the day 3 tight ends. And the hype was very real about him in the past. And I know a lot of people put baby Gronk on him back in the day. Now there's an actual baby Gronk, which is a whole different psychological conversation for another time. Mitchell Evans, Notre Dame. This feels like the type of guy that day 3 pick, he just comes in and he's a really like productive football player. Maybe he's never your fantasy football tight end, but he feels like he can be a productive football player for, a little bit over a half decade for a team. And they make the investment there on day 3. Where are you on Evans from Notre Dame?
Yeah, I've got him in the 4th or 5th round, and I completely agree with you. You're right. He's not going to be one of these guys who you're drafting on your fantasy football team, but he's got the ability to potentially be a starter in the league. And, worst case, I think you're looking at a really versatile backup. So I think he can do a little bit of everything. I think he's going to be, if he's not a starter, he's going to be in that backup tier. He's not going to be, someone's third tight end. So I think you're looking at the fourth round, maybe the fifth round for him. He's kind of in that conversation with Aronde Gadsden and Thomas Fidone if his knee checks out medically.
So Gadsden's a Syracuse guy. I thought maybe before the year, he was probably like going to be an amazing tight end. And then I guess it didn't really work out as much. And maybe the workouts weren't as good and some of that stuff for him. I love Fidone. And nobody can get an accurate pronunciation, but I call him Fidone because it sounds Italian. And then I just do this every time I talk about Fidone from Nebraska. So you want to talk about used to be highly touted, number one tight end recruit in the nation. And then, he has two knee injuries that rob him of his first couple of years of college. And then he plays at Nebraska, so it's like, do you get the opportunities? But you want an athlete, as long as the knee holds up, there's an athlete for you. Fidone can make it happen he's got a weird body too. Like, I wonder if it's kind of gangly. It looks like it could add some weight, but I don't know if you want to add weight to a guy that's got a knee issue. I don't know. He's a weird prospect because the athleticism's kind of there. The production maybe isn't there, but you can kind of project it a little bit. He says all the right stuff. Talk to him at the Senior Bowl, talk to him at the Combine, and he says all the right stuff, especially about working out. He's like, oh, yeah, no, we won the workout competition in the offseason 2 years in a row, my group. And I'm like, okay, so workout warrior, that's good. 2 knee surgeries, that's bad. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Okay, Mike, you gave us some fantastic names to watch for last year. And it was guys that you were higher on than everybody else. And this is where, when they score your big board, this is where you kind of separate yourself from everybody else, is those guys that sneak into that, maybe that back top of the 100, or that you just know, hey, I know they're going to be in the top 100. I just feel good about it. And I trust what I've seen. Last year, the name was Jonah Ellis. A lot of people were saying day 3, boom, 76 to the Broncos. Who are some guys you're higher on this year than some of the consensus ideas on them?
Yeah, so when we were talking about the offensive line in the Texans, I brought up Jalen Travis from Iowa State. I mentioned that, I went down this rabbit hole earlier this week where I was trying to find prospects with his measurables that fell to day 3. And so again, you're looking for explosion out of offensive linemen because they're coming off the ball, and you're looking for a number of about 32 is a really good number for a vertical jump. He had 35 at the Combine. His broad jump was 9.6, and his arms were almost 35 inches, hands 10.5 inches. And this is a guy who's almost 6'8". He's 340 pounds, ran a 5.14 40, which is fantastic for that size. 8-second 3-cone. But again, another guy who ran an 8-second 3-cone is Jordan Mailata. And now Jordan Mailata might be that example of a guy who's, sort of got similar numbers and went on day 3. But Mailata's vertical jump was a lot less than that. And this is also kind of a factor. They just kind of found Jordan Mailata in Australia, and they're like, hey, you want to try to play football?
Yeah.
And so that's obviously a factor as well. But you look at these types of measurables, they don't typically fall out of the top 100. I can't say for sure he's going to be a 3rd round pick. He could fall to the 4th round. This is a guy who's going to be a starting right tackle in the league, though. At some point, and I think he's going to be a top 100 pick. When Ray and I debate it, he's going to have a hard time convincing me to take Jalen Travis out of our final top 100 that we submit to the Huddle Report.
Okay, so one of the one of the Cyclones that is not getting as much love as his two wide receiver teammates, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knowles. So, all right, Jalen Travis, keep him in the back of our minds. You got another name or two that you're a little bit higher on than everybody else?
I do, and this one, usually I'm, pulling these guys out of, some small school. I got to tell you, I don't get it with Quinn Ewers. I do not understand why Quinn Ewers, from the quarterback from Texas, obviously, is not widely regarded as at least a day 2 pick. I get some of the knocks, right? Durability's been a factor. I get that. Durability was a factor when Deshaun Watson entered the draft too. He still went in the first round. Okay, durability was a factor with Jared Goff. He was the first overall pick in the draft. Durability was a factor with Teddy Bridgewater. He was a first round pick. I get the other issue is that sometimes he doesn't do a great job of feeling pressure. You have the famous example of Jack Sawyer getting to him at the end of that playoff game and forcing the fumble. I think Sawyer forced the fumble. Maybe it was Sawyer picked up the fumble.
I think Sawyer picked it up.
Yeah, I can't remember who forced that.
Maybe he did both. I don't know.
Yeah, but I get that, but I just don't see how this guy is not worth a day 2 pick, and nobody's got him there. I just can't imagine him falling to day 3. You're talking about the highest rated quarterback recruit in history. Now, I get that recruiting ratings out of high school should not be the end-all be-all of draft evaluation. But you look at a guy like Davis Mills, okay? Davis Mills was a 3rd-round pick because he was a big recruit. And, people looked at it and said, well, we had COVID, we had the shortened season. This guy might have some untapped potential, so we're going to use a top 100 pick on him. With Ewers, it's not like this guy had to got beat out by Arch Manning 2 years ago and had to transfer to McNeese State and threw 30 interceptions there. He's been in the college football playoffs the last couple of years. He's got an absolute cannon for an arm. And I can't imagine him falling to day 3, even though he's going to be on our board in our top 100. Nobody else is going to have him there. It sounds like he's falling to day 3. I can't do it. I can't take him out. Man,
I'm looking 99 to the Giants if they haven't made a quarterback pick yet. That'd be solid. Or 101 to the Rams is sort of a guy to just kind of sit and wait for LA. You could do a lot worse. I feel like those would be home run picks. And then, I guess, along those same lines, somebody who I'm kind of lower on, is it okay if I mention? Yeah, go for it. Yeah, who you're lower on?
So this sort of wraps into that conversation. Tyler Shuck is being mentioned as a top 35 pick.
I do not get it at all. I watched him at Texas Tech. It didn't look much better at Louisville. I don't get it.
Yeah, and I've been doing this for a long time, and there's this voice inside of my head that says, this is Ryan Nassib. And what I mean by that, for those of you who go back 10, 15, whenever that draft, that was the Geno Smith, EJ Manuel year. Everybody around this time, about a week before the draft, they're like, the Bills love Ryan Nassib. The Bills are taking Ryan Nassib, the quarterback out of Syracuse, in the first round. Everybody knows it. Everybody came out with their final mock drafts. Ryan Nassib penciled in there to the Bills in the first round. He was a day 3 pick. He not only didn't go in the first round, I mean, they took EJ Manuel, but he goes on day 3. I don't even think it was the 4th round. He might have gone in the 5th round. And I'm prepared to be wrong on Shuck, but I don't understand. So I get the argument for him. The argument for him is this. You're Joe Shane. You're Andrew Berry. This is it for you. You've got until maybe November to show that you're going to turn your team around and show some progress at the quarterback position. So maybe if you draft Tyler Shuck, at the top of the 2nd round, maybe he's going to come in and be a little bit more pro ready and be able to show you something to save your job. I get that. And so in that regard, NFL GMs are going to be a little bit higher on him, even though he's going to be 26 at the start of his rookie season, than a fan of one of those teams, right? Who, you're going to continue to be a fan 20 years from now, just like you were a fan 20 years ago. So I get sort of, passing over some of these guys like yours who are 3.5 years younger because you're desperate to win now. But the durability is also a major issue here. If Ewers is getting knocked for his durability, Shuck is a guy who's never been able to stay healthy until this past year, which was his 7th year. He's older than Trevor Lawrence.
Yep, so, that's my favorite Shuck stat is that he's older. And Trevor Lawrence has already played 4 seasons in the NFL.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to knock him. Look, I think there's a right spot for every prospect, and for me, the 4th round is a good spot for him because I think you bring him in. He's a little bit older, and maybe you have a really cheap backup for the next 4 years, sort of like a Davis Mills, right? I mean, Davis Mills has value in that he's a cheap backup. You don't have to pay him that much. So I would take him there. I cannot believe that we're a week away from Shuck getting drafted top 35 and Quinn Ewers falling to day 3.
Yeah, it feels where Shuck's supposed to go and where he actually goes, it feels very much Malik Willis when everyone was like, Malik Willis, top 10 guy. And it's like, nope, 3rd round guy. And turns out not very good. So.
And Cody, that's the conversation that I keep having with Ray, because you mentioned Willis. You could throw Desmond Ridder in that same year. Matt Corral that same year. Sam Howell. People thought Sam Howell was going in the 1st round. He went in the 5th round. Other years, Jacob Eason and Jake Fromm were looked at as being 2nd round picks, day 3. To a lesser extent, Spencer Rattler last year. A lot of people thought he'd be day 2. Just kind of deep into day 3. So I'm just wondering, I'm like, is everybody right about him or are we onto something? And I guess we'll find out on Friday.
Yeah, we certainly will. The scary thing is we might find out on Thursday, and I pity the fool that goes through that. Man, Mike, it's always a pleasure to do this. It's always so much fun. We could sit here and talk for 10 hours about all these different guys. And I want the folks to know, Mike will be in the comments section. You got some questions for him. Leave those in the comments section. I'll try to get to them. Mike will get to some of those questions as well. So if we didn't get to a prospect that you really like, you want Mike's thoughts on him, he'll try to get to that. Or you need a clarifier, or you disagree with Mike. Be nice, everybody, in the comments section, okay? If you disagree, be nice, all right? Don't be a jerk in the comment section on the internet. Nobody likes that.
Hey,
but man,
that's okay. Believe me, I've heard it all before. That's completely fine. That's why this is fun, right? We're allowed to have disagreements. I'm looking forward, though, to answering any questions or clarifying or even hearing why you disagree with me. That's completely fine.
The website is NFLRoughDraft.com, NFLRoughDraft.com. So check it out, and they'll have the final top 100 for you, the top 100 that they submit. And as I've mentioned, big board champs 3 times, he and his teammate Ray over there at NFL Rough Draft, and one of the most accurate draft prognosticators around. He's my buddy, Mike Luchene. Mike, appreciate it as always, man.
Cody, me too. You do a great job with the Texans. I always look forward to this. Thanks for having me on again.
Big thanks to my friend Mike for joining us in this video, talking a little NFL draft. I always have a blast with him. Hope he enjoys the jeans that he got from The Perfect Gene. Hope you check them out as well, and appreciate you watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I can't wait until we talk Texans again soon. Can't wait for the dang draft to be here too. So close.